I'd like to welcome to Interpol World Television Mr Jürgen Stock, who's the Secretary General of Interpol. Jürgen, welcome to Interpol World Television. It's really good to see you again.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Now, the international community has been suffering some challenges over the last couple of years. Has Interpol had similar challenges to the international community? We're seeing an increasingly polarized world. How's that affecting things from your perspective?
I think Interpol has been created almost 100 years ago because there were challenges at that time, and if you study old documents, sometimes you think nothing has changed. We are still talking about criminals crossing borders, kind of organized crime that spans continents, and of course the situation has been changing. Today we talk about the fourth industrial revolution. We are talking about globalization, we are talking about migration flows. So the environment to ensure security has definitely been changing. The situation is more international and more complex than ever. And law enforcement has to keep pace. So we need not only to react, we need to prepare for what's going on during the next maybe 3 or 5 years. So indeed a number of challenges for global law enforcement. But Interpol is more important than ever, for sure.
So international organizations and international sort of exhibitions and conferences like this are important in the fight against global crime?
No, it's very important, of course. It's a place to build bridges between law enforcement. It's about building bridges to non-traditional partners of law enforcement, so which means the private sector and the academia. And this is very much what Interpol World 2019 is about. It's a platform where experts from law enforcement meet, but not only amongst each other, but also to bridge to the private sector, which is playing an increasing role, an increasingly important role in providing security solutions, but also providing data, because the private sector is also a victim of crime, specifically in an environment where everything is connected in a hyper-connected world. And not to forget the academia, which also has an important role to play in, let's say, evaluating a little bit what we are doing and helping in finding tangible solutions. So those means and measures that help law enforcement at the front lines to come up with practical solutions. So this is where private sector has to play a key role. And again, that makes this conference so important, where we come together not only amongst us, but in teams and teamwork. A joint approach, a comprehensive approach. I think this is what's needed to face today's challenges.
So clearly public-private cooperation is one of your key messages to the international audience. For the people that haven't managed to make it to Interpol World in Singapore, what are the other key messages that you'd put out to them through Interpol World TV?
I mean, the key message indeed is building strong partnerships. We need let's say no country and no region can deal with the challenges we have been describing alone, on its own. It requires to organize collaboration, and more in an institutional way and not just ad hoc. So law enforcement amongst each other, we need to better cooperate. This is what Interpol actually is about, our primary mandate. But it's also a more systematic cooperation with the private sector. So do we have a common understanding where the threats are and what are possible solutions? So, and working in teams and specific questions, specific solutions, this is more important than ever. And of course, everybody has a responsibility. Law enforcement or security is not just something where you can say, we leave it for police. Everybody has a role to play in terms of developing solutions, but also protecting our systems. In the cyber environment, it's quite obvious. We all have to update our phones, our computers with up-to-date antivirus software and all the possibilities that exist to mitigate the risks. So everybody has a responsibility, everybody has a role to play, but we as law enforcement, we have to do it in a better organized and institutionalized way, for instance, with the private sector.
So what are the greatest risks that we've got at the moment? Is it serious and organised international crime? Is it international terrorism? Is it nation states that are working out there? Or is it a bit mixture of all of it?
Maybe it's the complexity of all these phenomena, because international terrorism, more complex than ever, definitely. In the past, maybe it was more a national phenomena, but this has now, through the so-called Islamic State, but also terrorist groups like Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, Jamia Islamiyah here in Asia, many other groups, also through using modern technology, social networks, they are more connected than ever. Remember the terrible attack in Christchurch in New Zealand very recently, where we saw that through social networks there's a different level of communication, organization, radicalization, and of course it ended up in a live streaming of this terrible attack, which is really a new phenomena which we are facing. Organized crime, more and more really global criminal enterprises that are spanning the whole globe. And of course cyber crime, borderless by nature, and perhaps we are just at the beginning of a development which will really create problems for all our communities in a hyper-connected world, where you don't have, as a criminal, you don't have to leave your home. You just, from your sofa, you can use the underground economy to get access to the tools, and you can actually attack any device, any system, any critical infrastructure all around the world that is connected to the internet. So completely new challenges for global law enforcement.
Now, you've been working towards dealing with those with Interpol 2020, your vision for that. Can you give us a brief outline as to what's in Interpol 2020 and then what's coming after that? Because we're not far off 2020.
We have actually reached the next stage, which is Interpol 2020 plus, because we have been developing a reform agenda, which is mainly about leading the organization into the digital age. That's what we need. So leveraging new technologies like artificial intelligence, big data analysis, further developing our global secure network, I-24/7, that connects 194 police organizations all around the world, strengthening our analytical capabilities, but also balancing that with ethical questions. So how do we do it in a way that it is accepted by our member countries? How do we ensure privacy by design? So all these are the questions of Interpol 2020 plus, but definitely it's further developing the role of Interpol as the global hub for sharing relevant police information, making sure that the right information is in the right hands of the right officer at the right time, at the right place.
Now, you're the one person who's got the best understanding of the threat across the globe and the difficulties there are for law enforcement dealing with it. What keeps you awake at night?
I think it's that many of our member countries' police services are struggling with the equipment they need to be a strong part of our global network, the training their police officer need to be a strong part of our global network, and how we can help, with the support of many of our member countries who are in a position to help, to enable these police officers, police agencies, police departments to exchange internationally relevant information, to receive and to exchange, because we know we are depending on each other more than ever. A critical incident in Africa might have impact on the security situation in Europe and in Asia and the Americas and vice versa. So we need to help each other, and how do we ensure to enable and empower those who currently need our support.
And I'm sure the relationships that are going to be built over the next 3 days are going to work towards that goal.
Absolutely, that's a fantastic place for networking. It's, by the way, a fantastic place also to build relations and trust amongst each other, because we know good rules and regulations is important, and Interpol definitely is a rules-based organization. We are proud of what we have been achieving, also in protecting human rights, for instance, but it's also about trust, which is definitely a strong motor of police cooperation. People need to know each other. Technology can do a lot, but a face-to-face conversation with a police officer from another country, another continent, nothing is more important than that.
Jürgen Stock, thank you very much indeed for giving up your valuable time for us on Interpol World Television.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks.